April 23rd, 2026. This is our way of handling the day's Democracy Now! Stories. We do not just repeat headlines. We take the event, hold on to the one or two facts that actually carry its weight, and then pull out the deeper lesson about power, institutions, and daily life. Story 1. Iran has started collecting toll revenue from ships moving through the Strait of Hormuz, while the United States keeps trying to choke Iranian trade through its blockade. The White House says the blockade is costing Iran hundreds of millions of dollars a day. Iran says it is turning the choke point itself into leverage. The deeper lesson is that once a trade route becomes a battlefield, it stops being neutral infrastructure. It becomes a tax system, a weapon, and a bargaining table all at once. Daily life feels that through fuel, shipping, insurance, and timing. Story 2. The Senate again refused to restrain Trump's war powers over Iran. That matters because institutions reveal themselves most clearly, not by what they say, but by what they repeatedly decline to interrupt. The deeper truth is that constitutional limits can remain on paper while becoming irrelevant in practice. After enough failed attempts to stop a war, the vote itself starts to function as permission. Story 3. The firing of Navy Secretary John Phelan is not just a staffing story. He was reportedly pushed out after tension with Pete Hegseth, in part because he was not moving fast enough on Trump's push for a larger shipbuilding program, even while the Navy is already enforcing the blockade of Iranian ports. The deeper lesson is that when political leadership wants speed more than judgment, personnel become part of the weapon system. The point shifts from competence to obedience. Story 4. Lebanon's ceasefire is already showing what it really is. Journalist Amal Khalil was killed after an initial Israeli strike hit a car, and a follow-up strike hit the building where she and photographer Zainab Faraj had taken shelter. Reports say Israeli drones pursued them, and medics were blocked from reaching the wounded for hours. At the same time, Israeli soldiers are being accused of looting homes and businesses in southern Lebanon. The deeper lesson is that a ceasefire becomes real through access, safety, and return. A ceasefire that still leaves reporters hunted, rescuers obstructed, and homes emptied is functioning less like peace than like managed devastation. Story 5. The FBI investigation into New York Times reporter Elizabeth Williamson over a story Kash Patel did not like is one of the most important domestic stories in the file. Agents reportedly interviewed Patel's girlfriend, searched databases for information on the reporter, and considered stalking charges before Justice Department officials shut the investigation down for lacking legal basis. The deeper truth is that the state does not need to win a case to punish scrutiny. It only has to make journalism feel legally dangerous. Story 6. 2 workers died and more than 30 people were hurt after a hydrogen sulfide leak at a West Virginia refining plant. On the same day, a new report said tens of millions of children in the United States are regularly exposed to dangerous air pollution. Those are not separate stories. They are the acute and chronic versions of the same system. The deeper lesson is that environmental harm usually arrives as daily exposure plus periodic catastrophe. The public notices the sirens. The body absorbs both. Story 7. Houston reversed limits on police cooperation with ICE after Governor Greg Abbott threatened to strip more than $100 million in public safety grants. That is one of the clearest examples of how coercion works inside federalism. The deeper truth is that local democracy shrinks when funding becomes conditional on enforcement obedience. Policy then changes through budget blackmail rather than public consent. Story 8. The ruling allowing the 10 Commandments in every public school classroom is more than a religion story. It is a state identity story. Public institutions are being used to make one moral language feel official, ambient, and normal. The deeper lesson is that symbolic capture often comes first. Put the commandment on the wall, build the new common sense around it later. Story 9. Pope Leo's trip through Africa may be the sharpest moral counterpoint in the whole file. He tied armed conflict directly to the colonization of oil and mineral wealth, and criticized corruption, inequality, and foreign exploitation. The deeper lesson is that many wars that present themselves as ethnic, religious, or security-driven are also extraction struggles in disguise. If you want to understand where violence keeps coming from, follow the minerals, the pipelines, and the export routes. Story 10. Representative David Scott's death changes the arithmetic in the House again. That may sound procedural, but in a chamber this narrowly divided, individual deaths and resignations become national leverage points. The deeper lesson is that fragile political systems become highly sensitive to events that look personal or local on the surface. One seat can change what becomes possible for everyone else. The through line today is simple. Systems under stress do not just become harsher, they become more openly transactional. Trade routes turn into toll booths, votes turn into permission, personnel turn into instruments, ceasefires turn into management tools, budgets turn into threats. Homes, Laws and institutions all start to look less like protections and more like things to be used. That is the deeper story under today's headlines.